Welcome to the Rock Solid Families Podcast. This is Merle Hutchinson alongside of my lovely wife, Linda Hutchinson. Hello, Linda. How are you today?
I'm good, and I'm excited.
I'm
excited about our topic because it's one that we have really felt very passionately about for a long time, but it's been a long time since we've talked about it on our show.
I probably bring this topic up, I don't know, numerous times every week. Right? Every time you're dealing with couples, right? This comes up, and so the topic this week is going to be really based from the book, Love and Respect, right? And so 2004?
Yeah, the book came out in 2004 by Dr. Emerson Eggerich. And the subtitle of the book is The Love She Most Desires and the Respect He Desperately Needs.
Yeah.
And that really hit us years ago.
Well, and hon, the reason, what I tell couples when I'm working with them, Emerson was kind of the first guy, at least in our education, who said, stop making men women. Stop saying you should get in touch with your feminine side. You should listen more, like a lady does. You should ask these questions. You should talk more. They're men. And so often when you and I, we talk about certain situations up in our office, and you'll say, well, I would do that. And I'll be like, that would never float with a man. You do that with a man and you've just lost everything. And so you have to recognize that the male brain and the female brain are different. Right?
Not wrong.
But not right
different.
Or wrong. They're
right.
different. And so that was a lot of this work. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the love and respect and how where that comes from in Ephesians. Right? Ephesians 5. And so we're going to talk a little bit about where that comes from. And then, well, what does it then really look like? Okay. Yeah. And what we're going to drill down, we're going to do this show in two parts.
Yes.
Okay. So the first part, we're going to kind of drill it down into the man perspective. Okay.
What does the man need?
Right. What does he need? What are some words that make sense to him? Okay. The second part, all right, will then be, what do the ladies need? Like, how do we approach the ladies? What's their heart desire? So it's going to be two parts, just because one, we don't want to, we want to do it right, and we also want them to be separate so you don't get them all confused.
Yeah.
Okay.
And when you don't get this right, Emerson calls it the crazy cycle. And you and I, hon, we're in the crazy cycle. And there's a lot of couples listening that have been in the crazy cycle where...
Are we currently in the crazy cycle?
I don't think so. But it's kind of like a hamster on a hamster wheel where they're just chasing their tail. And he'll tell you in the book that you're both guilty.
Right.
And really, it's going to stop when one of you kind of comes to the understanding like someone's got to get off the crazy cycle.
It's a negative loop versus a positive loop, right? And so there are lots of negative loops like addiction and stuff like that become negative loops, and so there are positive loops, and so that's basically what he gets into. So, but before we go, we better thank our sponsors.
You're right. You're right.
We need to thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hoosier Ice House. So we want to thank those guys for sponsoring the Rock Solid Family Podcast. We also want to thank all of you guys out there listening, sharing the shows. We get a lot of shares of the shows. We appreciate that because that actually, yes, that does grow the listenership, but more than that, somebody sharing it because they know another person will have ears to hear it. And that's a big thing, right? Like sometimes I listen to podcasts a lot, and sometimes it's just like, that's not what my ears want to hear, even though it could be a great show. And then you go back later and you go, oh, that was, now that's more pertinent in my life.
Yeah. So. And this is kind of where this book came from. For us, I do a lot more reading than you do. You do more podcasting. But when I read this book, it was like, it hit me between the eyes because this was really our story, hon. And honestly, I have to admit that I was the one that needed a lot of change here because I grew up in a very disrespectful home where my mom really didn't respect my dad like he deserved. And like Emerson will tell you, we're talking unconditional respect, which I'm going to just tell you, the pushback on this book was crazy for a lot of people because women were reading this through the lens of abuse and saying that, that doesn't give a man permission to be nasty to me or abusive to me. And we're not saying that. We're not condoning abuse, but we are saying that there's such a gray area that women have kind of been very condescending or disrespectful to men, thinking that that's how you relate to people. And it just comes off so wrong to a man, and it shuts them down.
Yeah. Well, and there's the generalization of all men are.
Yes.
All women are. And so to even get out of that, it's like, we've talked before, this is so much about respect the man. That doesn't mean you always respect his actions or behaviors. I mean, if the guy comes in drunk and he's being a jerk, you're not respecting that, but who he is a person, right? And so it's love the sinner, hate the sin. And these things hold true. Otherwise, when we start to disrespect the entire person, there's no way out for him. Yeah. There's no way out. Everybody loses. And so, and I remember he got attacked. In fact, a lot of people just said, we won't use any of his stuff. Yeah. And they just missed the mark on that.
Yeah,
they missed it.
For sure. So what we're asking you to do is get out a piece of paper, and we're going to ask you to write down this, what do you call this? This, acrostic.
Acrostic. We got
I had
it. Acrostic.
Mind fart there.
Neither of us were English teachers.
So I want you to write down this acrostic. And if you're a woman, I'm really wanting you to kind of put yourself in your husband's shoes as to how maybe they feel. And if you're a man listening, then like Merle's going to really share from a man perspective, like this is what most men are looking for. This is the vocabulary that maybe they don't have, but this is what they need. And again, every person's different,
right?
But the generalization of what many men are looking for and needing, I cannot tell you how much this has made a difference in people's lives once they get this crazy cycle under control.
Yeah. Hun, because we're going to be talking about men, I want to share one of our particular stories. We have many because we go in and out of crazy cycle just like everybody else. But I want to share the one that actually prompted me then to look into love and respect. I want to share the Jeep story.
Okay.
And I want to share that because I never dreamt that you had bad intentions and you were being mean, but I didn't understand and you didn't understand who each other were, okay, or was. I'm not, whatever the right word is with that.
Am.
And so I'm the dreamer of the two of us. I'm the dreamer. I get wild ideas. I tell people I have the idea for Rock Solid Families. You're the reason why Rock Solid Families functions every day. I mean, you are nuts and bolts. You're logic. You make sure things get done that way. But I'm the one who comes up with the ideas. And listen, right or wrong, it's like, no, like this is how God wired us, right? It's creativity versus the work. And you work that back and forth. So I'm the dreamer and you're that logical person. But you also are a high security need person, okay?
Especially money.
And so here I am popping ideas, right? Popping these ideas over the years. We're probably 20 years into our marriage at that point. We're probably 20 years in, okay? Because we're living in the same house that we're in right now. So we're not newlyweds when this goes down. And so we pulled up one day. It was a warm spring evening, when you're starting to get the taste of summer. And we pull up to a four-way stop, and I see a Jeep, rag top Jeep with the top off, and just louder music and all that. And I'm like, it would just be fun to have a Jeep like that.
And you've not said it just once. You would say that regularly.
And right away you had a knee jerk reaction, and I'm going to paraphrase the words because I don't remember exactly, but it was like, that's ridiculous.
Yep, you're right.
That's immature. That's stupid. We don't have the money. Like all of a sudden, it's not practical. Where were the kids ride? Like all the lists of why it was not a good idea. It just came out. And here, guys, you have to hear what was happening. And neither of us knew, or we couldn't verbalize it. In my mind, I was shutting down. I was like, well, fine. I'm done sharing my ideas with her. Now, we got 20 years of this, right? And so a lot of my ideas getting shut down, it just gets frustrating, okay? And so what happens there is the heart starts to get hardened. My heart starts to get hardened. And you just say, I'm not sharing my stuff with you. Now, here's why this is dangerous. What if I ran into another lady at work and I just happened to throw out one of my ideas?
Loves your ideas.
And she said, oh, me too. That would be fun. It's not a sexual thing at that point. It's an emotional connection that has been lacking. And that's why we get into these danger zones. That's why all of a sudden you have these affairs. And it's like it never started out of attraction physically. It started off of emotional connection. So, guys, that's why it's critical. So anyway, that happened. That summer went by. I didn't talk about Jeeps the rest of the summer. Okay. And it was almost this time of year. So we're recording this right now in end of September. And we were coming back from Cincinnati. We got a bite to eat or something.
Which,
and
by the way, I had read this book.
You had
I had read this book.
And I hadn't, right? I was not even aware of this book. And we're coming back on one of our local interstates here. And you said, hey, hon, get off at this Coleraine exit, which is one of the exits. Just get off at this exit and let's go to the Dodge dealer and look at some Jeeps.
I thought you were going to wreck the car.
Well, I really thought you were being a real jerk. I mean, at that point, I'm like, really? Like, am I going to get shot when I go there? Like, is this a setup? So I questioned. I was like, all right, whatever. And we went in and we looked at Jeeps for a little bit, kicked tires, opened doors, that kind of thing. And I said, hey, okay, we're not buying anything, so let's just go home. And we took off and we were heading back home. And we were both quiet. And I just said, as I'm looking forward out the windshield, what was that about? And you had tears coming out your eyes. And I said, what was that about? And that's when you told me about love and respect and how you recognized how you were disrespecting the dreamer of me, right? And well, then we're both getting tears in our eyes, right? Because you recognized that we're not doing anything to help each other. And you're shutting me down is essentially you saying you should be more like me. You should be more practical, right? And me, and listen, this story flip-flops too. I've done more than my share of not loving Linda the way she wants to be loved. And if you want to share those stories, you can. But I'm just saying that the point here is now we became aware. We became aware and started. So now when I have an idea, I go, you know what I'm going to say. And now when I have an idea, I say, hey, hon, okay. Now I don't even want you to respond.
Just listen.
Just listen. We'll take a break. We can talk about it later because I don't want a knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah.
And so I'll lay out this next idea or whatever, and we'll walk away. And it gives you time to process it and kind of work it through your brain. So anyway, I share that story because every time I talk about that story in actual sessions, light bulbs go off with couples.
Yeah. Well, and then we actually taught that one time, told that story, and somebody came up to us after and said, hey, Merle, I'm looking for a motorcycle. Can you get a motorcycle? But I do remember something else. When we got back in the car, I remember you had a big grin on your face and you leaned over and you gave me a kiss and you said, hey, I know we're probably not going to get a Jeep, but it was fun dreaming together. And it was like I saw a different softness towards you about it because I had been softened toward, well, color, hard top, soft top, 4-door, 2-door. And so like, I think you started to believe that I really was interested in what you wanted. So again, part of what we're going to do today is kind of go through how a husband feels respected. So I want you to put the acrostic down the page of chairs. Okay, CHAIRS, chairs. And we want to go through each one of these words and give you a little bit of understanding of what your man is looking for. And you, hun, we want you to kind of speak to these women or men of the vocabulary that a man needs to feel respected. So what does the C stand for?
Yeah, so ladies, I'm talking towards you, not at you like you better, but I'm asking you to listen, okay, from the heart and mind of a man, okay? The C stands for conquest. And so what conquest is for a man is conquering something, overcoming something, okay? And so the idea that you appreciate what I do. Now, it doesn't mean, well, I work too, right? That would be a phrase that I might hear out of a lady. Now, I know, but I'm just dealing with the man right now. For you to be able to say, I really appreciate that you go out and you bust your tail all day and you make sure that our family's taken care of and those kinds of things, because that's how you show a man love, right? We wouldn't use the word love. We would say respect, but that's actually how you get to that man's heart, by acknowledging what he's conquering, okay? And I'll add another C to that, really. When you compliment me over my task that I've done.
Yeah,
Like if I've remodeled a room or something.
Yeah.
And it's great when you compliment me to my face, right? Man, you did a great job on this room. But it's off the charts when you compliment me in front of other people.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Because that says my husband he's my knight
bomb.
in shining
That's
armor,
right.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what every man desires. He wants to be that.
Yes. You just mentioned it, hon, about working. And I think part of this conquest has kind of gone downhill with these two income homes where the wife is not only working as many hours, but sometimes making more money.
Right.
And so just by the natural desire of feeling like he's providing and taking care of his family when he's not the main provider or when he's not working. I mean, we have a lot of stay-at-home dads. And so that conquest is even harder. There's an internal tension they feel of not having the C word, the conquest. And so moms, wives, you've got to do a better job of finding things like remodeling the bathroom or taking care of the kids or being a great softball player or whatever. Find things he's good at and compliment him. And again, we're going to get to what the women need here in the next show, but we're talking about a man, and the conquest is huge.
Yeah. So the H, let's move to the H. Okay. So the H, it stands for hierarchy. Okay. And what that means is it's that level of positions of authority. Okay. Now, again, ladies, like, just hear me. Okay. Because I feel like knee-jerk reactions could come out of this. Biblically, the man is the head of the wife, just as Christ is the head of the church. Now, that doesn't mean he's king and ruler, okay? That doesn't mean that. What it means is that he is that last step of authority, okay? And here's where I actually see it the most. I'm sure that it could ripple out in so many ways, but I see it in disciplining kids, raising kids, okay? You know, you and I know you'll talk 10 words to my one with the kids, but when I have to come in and go, whatever your mother said, that's what we're doing. It's the masculine strength, which creates an authority. Now, here's why this is a big deal, hon. If you all of a sudden cut my legs out from under me, in other words, pulled out the hierarchy, dropped my authority, I won't even participate in that anymore.
Yeah.
And so guys will walk off the scene. In their mind, they'll say, then you can parent the kids. All right. So the man really has to feel like, hey, this is my strength I'm bringing. This is the masculinity. And there is strength in that masculinity. That's why God designed that. All right. And so we want it to be noted. Right, not praised in that way, but the idea
down,
that, like, you know, you read your Bible more than I do, right? So biblically, you are more in tune than I am, but spiritually, I still guide the home. Meaning, guys, this is important. This is important to us. And so the practice is reinforced.
Yeah.
Okay. And you and I create these plans together. Like, well, how are we going to raise the kids?
Right. I like your shirt that you're wearing today, Strong Dads.
I got all dressed up.
But you know, this hierarchy is the fact that he would die for you, that he would protect you. He'd take a bullet for you. And maybe as a wife, you don't feel like he would, but we've got to empower our men to feel like they are the protector, they're the overseer, that they are the spiritual leader in the home. And it's hard when you don't see them live up to that, but you've got to encourage that, and you've got to really want that part. And so in the women's lib movement of equality, we've lost this hierarchy.
Yeah.
I'm what's called a complementarian, which means that I believe that men and women, the God has given us different roles.
Right.
And I believe the Bible says that a husband should lead his family. And so that's that hierarchy. And then the A is authority, which is kind of where you're bleeding into.
Right.
But that's the don't cut your legs off, don't undermine you with the children. You know, you still have a voice. And we have done a horrible job of that too, as us ladies feel like we can do it just like the men. And so the men are like, okay, well then do it then.
Yeah. Right? The hierarchy and the authority run hand in hand with each other. Okay. And so that's the next, the CHA, the A of the chairs is really representing the authority. Now, I do need to address something here.
What?
if a man is not doing a good job with the authority, if he is cowing down, if he is being easily manipulated by the kids because maybe he doesn't want to create more tension or whatever, then he's bought into something that the culture said he should buy into. He's not the bottom line. He's not the firm hand. Okay. And so, men, you got to step up your game here, right? Like, mom's counting on you. Back in the day, you would hear phrases all the time. Wait till your father gets home. Yeah. Right. I think there was a TV show like that, right? And so it was just that idea. And men, you got to step up to that. And ladies, you have to honor that and don't ever cut his legs out from under him. Okay?
Encourage him. Now, again, it doesn't mean you have to agree with everything dad says, but we teach this all the time. We want mom and dad to be a united front. And if you guys don't agree on a decision, you go wrestle that out privately, respectfully, so that when you come out, the kids don't see that you undermined him or you disagree with him, but that you guys worked it out and you came with a united decision and did not undermine his authority, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. We have that so often where the dad seems harsh, and so mom comes in and says, "Oh no, they don't have to do that," and then dad's like, "Pfft," and he's all upset, right? Yeah. So that wipes out the A.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one.
What's
so
H-A-I?
H-A-I and C-H-A-I. I is the insight that a man brings to the decision making. Okay, maybe perspective could be the right word here as well. So the idea here, we've run into this. You're a strong-willed woman, and you're a fast thinker, and so there's been times where we've been talking about something, and I go to say my idea, and you cut me off midstream, and I'm like, "Are you going to listen or not?" And so that's that whole idea. It's not just men and women. It's how you think as people. And is all we're asking as men is just hear us. Just hear us. We bring a different perspective. It's not right or wrong. Different. Okay. Yep. And so hear us. And occasionally, like, hun, so often we are getting into bickering matches. I say we, general, all right, over things that really are not right or wrong. They're preferences. And so you might say, no, I think we should go to the cabin over the weekend and take this route. And I might say, take this route. And there's 30 seconds difference between the two. Who cares? Like, who cares? Allow each other to have some of that back and forth. And so let the man have some weigh in, some insight. And the last thing you want to do, and this goes both ways too, is basically demean what your husband is thinking and saying.
Yeah, his
and you would do that by rolling your eyes, by heavy sigh, or just dismissing him like, there he goes again, okay? And so when you do that, you basically cut him off at the knees. You've lost part of the man. Now,
you are a fixer. And if I come with a problem, you're not going to let me just wallow in it unless I say, hey, I don't need you to fix it. I just need you to listen. And so we still get insight from our man. But man, our men are not going to sit there and wallow in their deep emotions, right? They're going to try to come up with a plan. And so ladies, if you ask your husband or share something with your husband, you need to tell him, like, I just need you to listen. Yeah. I don't need you to fix it. Or if you need a solution, like I've done this many times where I'm like, honey, I have no idea what to do here. And you're like, okay, we'll do this, And so you come in with that insight. But sometimes I don't want it. I just want a listening ear.
Yeah. Well, and we've learned over the years, and this is where this rule came from. We don't give advice unless it's asked for, okay? And I even tell people that when they come into my office, the only reason why I'm giving advice is because they're paying for it.
Exactly,
okay?
They've asked.
But if I saw them out on the street, I would not be giving them advice unless they asked for it.
I'm horrible at this.
Well, we just can't do this because it's a self-righteousness of saying I have to weigh in on this.
Okay.
And if people didn't ask for it, like, no, you don't have to weigh in.
Okay,
on it.
so
we're seeing it with our teenage boys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I know.
Where we're like they shut down as soon as you go to give advice, and you're like, it's not going to work.
Like tonight, like I
Maybe.
might have done that. So anyway. I want to tell the blue pants story because this is a perfect example of what not to do. We had been married a month. Okay. So I was definitely not aware, and I had not seen Great modeled. So you were teaching, you needed school clothes. We go shopping. You probably have heard the story before if you've listened to us at all. And I saw this really bright blue pair of pants.
I had a different word for the color blue, but we'll go with
somewhere
bright blue.
in that logo. But anyway,
It's a blue that I would never wear.
it was kind of like an Izod blue back in the days of polo and Izods. And
Pants.
And they
Okay.
were really cheap. And so I was like, hey, hon, you can get these pants. And you're like, I'm not going to wear those pants. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they're like, you'd be losing money without these pants.
And I said, no, I'm not going to wear them.
Yes.
And you called me a pighead.
And so you went in and tried on other pants, and I decided that you needed those pants. And so I went and started to buy them. And you were in the dressing room.
I'm in the dressing room. I'm in the dressing room, and I'm hearing Linda talking to someone. And I'm like, who's she talking to?
She surely
and
can't be buying those
look
pants.
over the door, and you are literally buying these pants.
Oh, gosh.
I almost came out of that place naked.
You were not happy.
I was so charged, and I came out, and I was not a good guy in terms of how I.
It was BC before Christ.
Yeah. I threw the pants down. I said not very good things.
Yeah.
And I said, we're out of here. We're done.
I think you said, I'm not buying those effing pants. Again,
Flipping
36
pants.
years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the whole drive home, not a single word.
Oh, man.
Not a single word. Okay.
I was so wrong. So wrong.
Well, we're a month into marriage, guys, and there's like all these things going on, and I don't even know how to say the words, right? Like
I think I'm making a mistake. Like, what did I marry?
Yeah.
A guy that went nutso on the lady. The lady's look was like, do you want the pants? Like,
Yeah.
she didn't know what to do with that.
Yeah, and she didn't know if I was a monster or what, and so it took time, but I think only because we were thoughtful enough, we wanted to try to get through it. We got back to the house, and we sat around for a bit, did our thing, and then we came back, and it finally came to me like the right words, because it really wasn't, as we say all the time in the story, it's not the blue pants.
It's not about the blue pants.
It's not the blue pants. That's not what we're actually doing. Is we were stepping in an emotional need that created. We were stepping on a landmine, and my emotional need. Linda has a high need for control. Okay, to keep the nest, to make sure things are in place, to make sure
to be financially stable,
to make sure she knows exactly what the kids are going to do all the next week that we're out on vacation, to make sure all of that's right. Okay, and I'm not that way. But one thing I do, like something that hit my nerve, is I don't want to be controlled,
and you want to be respected.
Yeah, and so I felt like I was being controlled. And you were disrespecting my word.
Yeah.
And we were able, this was long before Emerson Eggerich,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
We were actually able to come up with those words
Yep.
and start to work through that, right? Like, because I knew Linda was not ill-meaning, and I think she knew that I wasn't a monster, okay? I think.
I did cry all the way home. Yeah.
Remember we had the sunroof
Oh my
open
gosh,
and we were yelling and screaming at each other, and the sunroof was open, and the people would stop and they would keep walking. They just stared at us and listened
Thinking
to our
there was
conversation.
abuse or something.
Yeah.
And then we stopped talking altogether for another hour. So,
All right.
So yeah, that's insight. And just, definitely taking his advice into into consideration. So the next one is our relationship.
Yeah. So the relationship, you'll hear this a lot, and this idea of beyond being married, are we friends? Do we value the time together? Are we connected on various things that are of interest to us? A lot of times you hear this, the kids are our glue. That's a dangerous thing.
Yeah.
That's a dangerous thing because
Kids grow up and leave.
They leave, right? And so the idea that you have a companionship and you rely on that relationship is really important. We see it all the time. We're even experiencing it ourselves as the kids start to go away. We're both different people. We have very different interests. I can't get you to ride a mountain bike to save my life.
I bought a bike,
you
though.
You did buy a bike.
Yeah, that's not a mountain bike.
And you would do a lot of church work and groups, things and stuff like that. And I'm like, no. And so, but we still are trying to weave in, well, what do we want to have in common? What can we share together? Because it's important enough to do that, right? Otherwise, if you ignore it, this has been, it doesn't seem like it, guys, but hear me. she sheds and man caves are extremely dangerous.
Yeah, we
now
did a
hear
show
me,
on
like
that.
you're gonna be like, what? No, they really are. Because if we're not in some level of connection, and every night after work I come home and go to my man cave, and you go to your she shed, whatever that is, right? Those are just figurative speaking. But the idea that I don't want you in my space. All right.
Yeah.
You're blowing your relationship. You're just basically trashing it. So
Yeah.
you got to be really careful. I'm not saying, listen, I have a workbench. I have all these different things, right? But you got to have time together.
Yeah. So we encourage alone time. You go ride your bike or do those things, but then also find something fun to do together. What blew my mind about this, hun, when I was reading Emerson's work in Love and Respect, is this shoulder to shoulder friendship. Like you'd be okay if I just sit next to you and watch the news or watch a Bengal game, where I want to like sit across the table and talk. And guys, that shoulder to shoulder, like I can just sit there and watch you change the brakes on the car, and like you feel like we're together. And so, or take a walk and not even look at each other. And so like this shoulder to shoulder thing is what guys feel like we're doing things together, and it energizes them to want to reconnect with you. So alone time, but also together time, doing something fun, relationship.
Yeah. Okay. Really
S.
important. Ooh. Okay.
You want to take a guess what the S is?
Yeah. So the X is the sexuality. All right. And so we talk about this frequently. In the work that we do, it's God wired us differently. I guess it's right. I don't know. Right?
Oh my gosh, God has designed us. You think he made a
God,
mistake?
what did you do here?
He did wire us differently.
He wired us very differently, and probably thank God, right? Because if men and women both had the same level of sexual desire, nothing would ever get done except for babies being made, right? And if it were the other way, there would be the population would have stopped. We would have been done. So it is that mixture, and so it is a matter of the two of you working out what is going to be healthy and good for you. And so sometimes you'll read silly magazine articles like, what's the amount of sex frequency that a couple should have? You know what the right amount is? What the two of you can agree to and feel like is healthy and you can maintain. Okay. And so if that's 3 times a week, if that's 3 times a day, if that's 3 times a year, it's
holy cow.
Yeah, I know. 3 times a year, just hang me up right
3
there.
times a day?
Well, something to talk about.
Isn't that interesting?
That went south. Okay. So, but you guys are listening right now. You know what I'm saying. You get it. All right. But the idea here is you come to an understanding. All right. And you serve and work to the benefit of each other.
And so, ladies, I need you to initiate more often. I need you to respond more joyfully. It's hard. I know you're different wired. And by the way, this is flipped. I've got couples so it's flipped.
Yeah.
It's the woman that's the initiator. It's the woman that has.
It happened to me one time in 20 years.
With who?
One of the couples I was working with.
Oh. I thought you were talking about me. I'm like, what? But we're talking about acknowledging that there are temptations for your man and that you want to help him bounce his eyes off and focus on you. But if you are withholding because of anger or bitterness or tiredness, if you keep withholding, you're kind of creating more and more temptation. And again, I'm not justifying affairs or pornography. I'm just saying that sexuality is part of what a man needs to feel loved, to feel respected. And so we got to do our part. And again, I'm not talking about abuse. I'm not talking about him controlling you unhealthy wise. But I'm just talking about that relationship that can be thriving, not just surviving.
Yeah. And I think, sometimes as couples, they get older and hormone levels change and that not at the same rate. And so, maybe the man is still desiring a higher level of frequency and the lady's like, it's just not there for me. I think the idea, hon, that a lady would at least lean in and say, well, maybe I'll go talk to my doctor.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll do this. Maybe I have to change a lifestyle habit or something. Just the idea that you acknowledge that this is something that we need to work on, I think goes a long way.
Yeah. to show them, hey, I hear you, I know it's important, and I want to make effort. So that is chairs, and that is how a husband feels respected. And thank you, hun, for sharing just your heart. And so whether you're a man listening or a woman listening, our goal is for us to build that intimacy.
Right.
We do come at things differently. He talks about the pink hearing aids and the blue hearing aids and the pink megaphone, and not wrong, just different. And so when we don't see eye to eye and don't understand what each other needs, we get in this crazy cycle. So next week, we're going to talk about what the woman needs.
All right. So next week, I'm going to kind of interview you.
Okay.
Right. And I'll get your perspective because I don't think like you do. And
really?
So, yeah, well, and so I need to kind of hear this. And I think, well, I'll set that up when we start the next show, right?
Okay.
Like the idea of like how I need to train my brain to do better there.
Yes.
So anyway, I want to thank you guys for listening to Rock Solid Families. Again, we want to thank our sponsors. We want to thank Maxwell Construction, Casey's Outdoor Solutions, and the Hoosier Ice House. If this show hit a nerve with you, great. If you can think of a relationship that somebody you know is in right now could benefit from all of this or part of it, please share it. Right?
Yeah.
Please share.
Yeah. So thank you so much for listening to the Rock Solid Families podcast, part 1 of Love and Respect. Just building a stronger community, one family, one marriage at a time. Make it a great day.
Rock Solid Families wants to thank Casey's Outdoor Solutions for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. Casey's has grown to be one of the largest and most unique garden centers and gift shops in the Cincinnati tri-state area. Whether you are looking to take on that next landscape project or simply add a little home decor to your house, Casey's has you covered. Located at 21481 State Line Road, Lawrenceburg, Indiana. Call them today at 812-537-3800. Let Casey's help you add beauty to your home. Rock Solid Families wants to thank Maxwell Construction for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast. For over 30 years, Maxwell Construction has been a leader in turning dreams into realities, building schools, banks, restaurants, and many other commercial and public facilities. Maxwell Construction has made it their priority to not just build buildings, but to build into their community. So if you have any construction needs, call them at 812-537-2200.
Rock Solid Families would like to thank Hoosier Ice House for being a proud sponsor of the Rock Solid Families podcast. In the heart of historic Lawrenceburg, Indiana, the Ice House is at the corner of Vine and High Streets. The historic building evokes a feeling of comfort with spacious indoor and outdoor dining, a large bar, and comfortable dining areas. Large enough to host parties, yet intimate enough to feel like your favorite neighborhood restaurant. So thank you again for the Hoosier Ice House for sponsoring the Rock Solid Families podcast.